I'm back. Oh, I was very sorry I was unable to do a review last week. Got sick. I'm just recently kind of feeling more like myself. I'm back. I'm back in the driver's seat, back with my crew, and back at the movies. So, wonderful to be back. And this is one I've seen trailers for a while, and when I did, I was like, okay, that's one we gotta check out. It's interesting that as we go through a year at the movies, and I've noticed this all 3 years I've been doing this, how certain patterns will emerge. You know, nothing big, and it's more like a 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing, kind of a weird connecting thread that will sometimes run through films I enjoy or films that kind of catch my eye. You know, 2 years ago it was heist movies. You know, you had Logan, Lucky, and then there was the film, there was the one with Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine, which right now, Going in Style, that's the name of it. And then you also had Logan, which is not a heist movie, but Logan, Lucky, you know, so weird threads. Last year, it was all roads led to Black Panther. You know, if you looked at my top three, you know, you had Black Panther, and then Creed 2, which starred Michael B. Jordan, and then Avengers, you know, Infinity War, which had Chadwick Boseman and the Black Panther characters. So, you know, so there's these threads that kind of pop up. It's interesting. And a theme I noticed just with 2 films this year are biopics of people to whom I am not actually a huge fan of their work, yet I am very respectful of them and the legacy they have. Right now, the thing sitting on top of the heap is Stan and Ollie. And I'm not a Laurel and Hardy fan. I tried to be, you know, but I'm just not. But I love that movie, and I love, you know, that kind of comedy. And full disclosure, and I know some people will consider this outright blasphemy, I have never been a Tolkien fan. Now, please don't misunderstand, because I think a lot of people do. When you say you're not a fan of something, they automatically think that means you hate it. And I don't hate Tolkien's work. It's just never spoken to me. It's I don't know. It's just a little too British, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. But I've never been a Tolkienado, or whatever you want to call them. I was not a fan of the Lord of the Rings movies, but just like with him, I respected them for the filmmaking achievements that they were, and I've respected his work just for the impact that it's had. But I've never really been a fan of his, so therefore I know, oh, Dudley, I'm sorry. So therefore I knew, to say I knew next to nothing, I think, is being generous. I think, you know, I didn't even know what the guy's real name was, you know? I knew nothing about him. So I came into this movie understanding, of course, that it's obviously going to be fictionalized to a certain extent, because all biopics are, without any expectations about him or, you know, his life. And so all the information I got was new. So I guess you can gauge this one in kind of 2 terms. One, how does it serve as a biopic? And 2, how does it serve as kind of just an entertaining narrative? And I think on both levels it really succeeds. As a biopic, I learned things about an author that I did not know. Of course, again, it would be hard not to learn something about him. Taking a lot of it with a grain of salt, of course. But still, you know, I learned a bit about kind of the mind and the interests and the development of this very unique creative voice. As a story, as a narrative, you know, it was a very engaging piece. Very interesting, filled with very likable, well-played characters, and a fascinating kind of focus. So the story is just that. It's the early story of J.R.R. Tolkien's life, from early teenagehood up through his kind of the major experiences he had as a soldier in the First World War, and then kind of ending with the writing of The Hobbit. And the film focuses mostly on the relationships that he forged in those kind of formative years of his life. The relationships he forged with his 3 best friends at school, the relationship he forged with his future wife, the film is very centered on the relationships. I think that's very fascinating. You don't see that a lot in biopics. Biopics are usually, what I find with biopics is they're usually interested in 2 things. 1, poking holes in everything you thought you knew about a person. Modern biopics love to go, oh, you liked this person? Well, watch this movie and learn what a bastard they were. Or they want to just show you how this person's genius, was always evident and always going to be there, and oh, what a godsend this human being was. And this biopic is very different in that what it seems to be much more interested in are the relationships. The relationships in this film are very nuanced and very real. The major ones being, of course, like I said, the ones with his 3 school chums and Edith, the girl who would become his wife. And especially the relationship with him and his friends, his school friends, seems so very natural and so very real. The actors all do an excellent job of just creating a bond that seems like a genuine friendship. While we're on that, let's just talk a little bit about performances. And I gotta give big ups to Nicholas Hoult as, J.R.R. Tolkien, and just how good he is in this movie. Up until this point, I always kind of looked at him as kind of a mediocre talent. He wasn't terrible, but the things I had seen him in have always just been kind of like, oh, okay, but he really shines here. I think he might be one kind of like Keira Knightley, who I think his true calling are going to be these kind of period pieces. He's got a bearing and a level of presentation that fit other time periods. I really think that's going to be his bread and butter, because he's excellent here. It's an excellent performance. The other lads, I'm speaking very British. The other lads, in the film are quite good. I don't know any of the actors' names. None of them seem familiar. They're all very good, each having a kind of very distinct personality. He has a very different relationship with each one, and while I don't think all the relationships are gone into as deeply as maybe I would have liked, they're very distinct, and you can pick them out. Big ups to 2 of the supporting cast. They got 2 really great character actors in the supporting cast. Derek Jacobi as a linguistic professor, I believe, at Oxford, that kind of takes Tolkien under his wing and teaches him, whatever. Great performance. And big ups to one of my favorite character actors, who is not in nearly enough things, but who is always brilliant and always quietly charismatic, Cole Meany, whom people like me will know best as Chief Miles Edward O'Brien from Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek The Next Generation. And he was in this as a priest who becomes Tolkien's legal guardian after his mother passes away. And he's only in like 3 or 4 scenes, but oh man, Cole Meany is just so good. He's just such a good actor. And man, watching this, you forget how good of an actor he is, because you don't see him that much. I know he does a lot of things in England and Ireland. But man, I wish we could get him in more things. God, he's just so good and grounded, and just brings a level of realism to everything he's in. It's so good. So the performances are really what this film hinges on. Now, here's the thing. While this film focuses on the relationships that he forged and that had great impact on him. But the problem is as I've said in other reviews, is that when something is very good on one hand, when it isn't as strong on another, that thing sticks out. And one of the things that stuck out for me is, like I said, the relationships they focus on are the ones with his friends and his future wife. The relationship with his guardian gets a certain amount of screen time. The conflict there, but there's still a love. The influence of the mentor, played by Derek Jacobi, gets a decent amount of screen time to show how that influenced him. But here's the thing, and he has a brother who they barely mention. His brother's seen in the very beginning, and then mentioned sporadically throughout. It's mentioned that he also is in the war fighting. He shows up, assuming the guy he's walking with at the very end is his brother. And it's like, so his relationship with his brother had absolutely no effect on him? And what makes that even weirder is that when he and his school chums form like this kind of club, as school chums tend to do. My friends and I did it, HWO for life. But when they do it, we're brothers. We're going to be brothers. And I'm just thinking there, he has a fucking brother, for real, doesn't he? It's like, doesn't that? And it's just so funny to me that, again, you can't fit everything into the movie because, we'd be there forever. It would be like an actual Lord of the Rings movie. But excuse me, still getting over being sick. But I don't know, just so weird when you have a sibling, and then you meet a new group of people and are now saying, well, now you're my brother. It's like, well, what's going on there? Yeah. So I don't know, that really stuck out to me. It was something that kind of bugged me as the film kind of went on. Here's another thing that kind of bugged me as the movie. It did it really heavy-handedly in the opening parts of the movie, and as the movie kind of went on, it lightened up on it. But in the early goings of this, the film really feels like it's trying to act like a prequel to Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit movies, because it's one of those things where, and again, you see this in a lot of biopics or, history films, where every single shot, every single thing is like a callback, a visual cue to something from one of those movies, just going, look, this is where the inspiration for this came from. The very beginning, when we see him as a young boy in his boyhood home, of course, it's in a lush, English countryside, very green, very strikingly bringing back that visual shorthand of Hobbiton or Hobbit Town or whatever the hobbits, lived. And then they moved to London, and London is shot in very black and reds and a lot of smoke, calling back those visual cues of Mordor. It's like, okay, we get it. Not every, it's like doing a prequel movie where we have to, explain the origin of where Han Solo got his gun. Nobody gives a shit about where he got the gun. It's a gun. You can get one of those. And the same thing here. It's like, okay, we get it. And they would drop little things like that. There's a framing device in this film, because a lot of it's told in flashback, but the framing device of it is Tolkien in the trenches of World War I, and he's looking for his friend, one of his school friends. And so he and his little lieutenant, his loyal little lieutenant named Sam, go on a dangerous quest, across, into no man's land, basically, to find his friend. And of course, Sam is a small, very loyal just so heartwarmingly loyal type of character. You're like, okay, calm down. And again, because it's a biopic, I'm always hesitant to say things like that, because then some Tolkien historian is going to come out and go, well, actually that guy was real. And so I don't want to look like a complete ignorant asshole, but I'm just saying from this movie standpoint, it's leaning really hard into these things, as if every little thing is somehow an influence for The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. There's a line in here when they're discussing Wagner in the opera, and somebody says, one of his friends says, I don't want to watch 6 hours of something telling me a story about a magic ring. And it's one of those lines you're like, okay, ha, 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 because the Hobbit movies were really long, It reminds me, there's a Far Side comic where Albert Einstein is at a chalkboard. He's got E equals MC, cubed, or E equals MC, 5 or 6. I don't know the exact math terminology. And he's leaning on the chalkboard. He's all distraught, and the cleaning lady's on, cleaning his desk, and she's going, "Yep, I've got the desk all squared away. Yes, sir, everything's all squared away." And that's what a lot of these things in this movie feel like, is these very kind of on the nose, way too obvious, poking you. I'm not going to claim that I am in any way, as a writer, the equal of someone clearly as famous and as influential as J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm not making that claim. But I am a writer. I am an award-winning playwright. Okay? And I can tell you that when I do pull things from real life, but when I do it, for the most part, they're subtle little things that would pass by a person. Obviously, everybody knows that World War I influenced The Lord of the Rings and the horrors and all that. So yeah, I get all that. But big, Wagner references and everything, I think those are just too. I think that's someone trying to be more clever than they need to be. And here's the thing: the film didn't need it. It didn't need all that, because again, after I don't know how long it was, an hour or so, the film kind of starts dropping those things and goes for a little bit more subtle approach. Like I say, when they're on the battlefield and he starts seeing like dragons when the Germans are spraying fire at them or something like that. Okay, that I can get behind. That makes sense. So the film drops a lot of the more obvious things and just lets us exist in this really well-crafted, well-written, well-acted character piece. And again, what I love about it, I'm repeating myself, but I think this is something that's very important, is that this film is about relationships, about how the relationships forge the people we are and forge, our view on the world. And I think that is a fantastic way to go with a biopic like this. I really think they did a great job in it. So it's possible that if you're a hardcore Tolkien fan, watching this, I kept wondering what Lindsay Ellis would think of it, because I watch her stuff on YouTube all the time. She's a very big Tolkien fan, and what she would think of this movie, being more knowledgeable about him than clearly I am. But as a novice, I can say the film is very good, very engaging, brilliantly acted, cleverly written. It's got a little bit of Dead Poets Society in it, in all the good ways. And if you can ignore some of the more heavy-handed elements of it, it really comes off well. So, final grade for Tolkien. I'm gonna go A- on this one. And I was looking at a B- as I was watching it, and it kind of gained ground as it kind of went on. But I really enjoyed it. Felt like I learned a little something about someone I didn't know anything about, and was thoroughly entertained. This is definitely a film I want to watch again. You know, not only entertained, but you do feel a little bit inspired to go home and start writing again. You really feel like, you know, you want to get back to the keyboard a bit. So yeah, I enjoyed this, and if you're a hardcore Tolkien fan, you'll probably really enjoy it. So, all right, there we go. Excuse me. So we're kind of wrapping up drive home reviews here over the next couple of weeks for the summer. For those who are long-term watchers, I usually go back home to Alaska over the summer, and I still do reviews, but the thing is that I'm staying at my parents' house, and my parents, one, don't have Wi-Fi, and two, the internet they do have is just so fucking slow. like uploading a video, I tried it once there, and it took all day. I am not lying. It took all day to upload. So I usually don't upload the videos. So I usually do those when I get home, do a big, massive upload of content right when I get back. So anyway, we got a couple more of these I'm gonna try to get in before I head home, and then we say goodbye for the summer. But I always come back, because Lord knows, if there's one thing these reviews prove, it's that I always have something to say. So thanks for joining me. It's good to be back, feeling better. Hope everyone else is feeling well too. And as always, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.